Good evening, grim grinning ghosts, and welcome to the Scream Signal podcast. Don't be afraid, it's only friendly fire. I'm your co-host Jeff, and with me are
Jeremy
and George.
And George, why don't you start us off this week by telling us what you've been checking out?
Yep, checked out a couple of things this week. Nothing too crazy. The first was a movie that I've been looking for a while. I believe it was on streaming at one point. I just never got around to it. But it is 2010's The Last Circus by Alex de la Iglesia. Watched this one over the weekend. Picked it up from Vinegar Syndrome recently during their sale. And this one's set in the 70s in Spain. And it follows a aspiring clown who wants to be a sad clown. His first job is with a very skeevy circus, kind of in the ruins of a city in Spain. And once he's there, he finds himself in a love triangle with a acrobatist that's part of the circus, and her partner, who is the lead clown for the circus. And it is completely unhinged. It sounds mostly straightforward, but this is it's very, very horror tinged. Even though it's more on the thriller side, there's a lot of body horror by the end of the movie, which I was not expecting. I've always been a big fan of De La Iglesia. I really liked Day of the Beast, or Action Mutante, everything he's Perdita Durango. That's another great one. Most everything he's made has been really good, and this is no exception. I definitely recommend this one. Seek it out if you can. It's definitely worth a watch. And then the only other thing that I've really been watching has been Dark Winds on Netflix. It is a series. I think it originally was on AMC or AMC Plus. Netflix, I guess, picked up the license for it, and there's 4 seasons of it currently on Netflix. I'm about halfway through the first season. I think Jeremy had mentioned early on in our episodes that he was watching it, a couple months ago. Yeah. It's fantastic. Very, very good. It's kind of a detective story mixed with some supernatural elements throughout. Definitely worth a watch, especially if you have any interest in anything Native American. Takes place 1970s on a Native American reservation. And there's a mysterious murder that has happened on the res. And a tribal policeman is brought in to try to figure out what happened with that murder, and he can't make heads or tails of it. And I'm curious to see where it goes. So, yeah, definitely worth a watch as well.
Awesome. All right, Jeremy, what about you? What have you been getting into?
So this week I didn't watch a lot of new material. This was a lot of rewatches this week. As George mentioned, the Vinegar Syndrome sale was last month, and those started shipping out recently. So I was kind of picking through some of the stuff that I received in that sale. So the two that I watched this week were first, The Mangler. This was a movie I hadn't seen since it's probably been 20 years ago that I last watched. This is directed by Tobe Hooper in 1995. It's based on a Stephen King short story of the same name. It's from the book Night Shift. Robert Englund is one of the main characters in this, and Ted Levine. Robert Englund plays the owner of this laundry service, and he has this laundry press that is called the Mangler. This laundry press has, people get hurt working on it a lot, or die working on it. That's kind of the general conceit of this. This is haunted laundry press. So sounds cheesy. And it is cheesy,
but it's important to point out to people that when you say laundry press, this is a giant industrial machine.
Massive.
It's not like a little silly thing. It's like a big stomping machine.
It's like a laundry press the size of a fucking bulldozer. Right. It's huge. So it does sound cheesy, and it is somewhat cheesy still. Don't get me there. That's there. This is it's a hard concept to take and make people not find cheesy. But I remember liking this when I was a kid. When I first saw it in 95 or 96, probably when I rented it on video. I would have been 10 or so at the time, probably. And I liked it then. And then I think it was one of those that when I was in my late teens or early 20s, I kind of watched it. I was like, oh, my taste is very highbrow, and I don't like this right now. And I kind of looked down on this for a long time, and then going back and revisiting it now, where I don't really give a shit about that kind of thought process. I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I'm gonna at some point pick up the 2 direct-to-video sequels or try to track those down and watch those. I suspect they're not as fun as this one.
Yeah, I remember some of those being pretty bad.
Yeah. But this one was definitely fun. It's worth checking out. The Blu-ray, I mean the 4K copy looks nice. It does have the worst box I've ever felt in terms of like the 3D, the glow in the dark texture on it is like horrific to hold, I think, but cool movie. Other than that, I watched Human Lanterns, which is a Shaw Brothers production. It's a 1982, I think, martial arts horror film about a lantern maker who is hired by a kung fu master who wants to like one up his rival kung fu master who made a beautiful lantern. So he hires this lantern maker who then proceeds to start making like lanterns out of women's skin, like, paper lanterns like you would see in Chinese festivals and stuff. So that's what we're talking about when it's Human Lanterns. It's this person turning young women skin into paper lanterns. And there's cool kung fu here. There's some gnarly gore effects. There's like the guy that makes these lanterns, or like, well, the villain of the movie that shows up constantly is wearing like a really cool skeleton, like weird mask with like wild like hair sticking out the top and stuff, and kind of dances around and does like a weird kung fu style. It's just a lot of fun to watch. I recommend this one a lot. I've watched it a few times over the years, and the new 4K copy of it looks fantastic and is great.
Yeah, I think it's a new cut of Human Lanterns. The only reason why I ask is I watched it on like
Yes.
El Rey years ago, and I thought there was some extra footage to the to that release. Okay, cool.
So this is
I
a
haven't
brand new
watched my
cut.
copy yet, so.
Yep, it's worth watching. It's great. I mean, it is when you're dealing with a lot of these old like Shaw Brothers productions and stuff that were made extremely cheap and quickly. A 4K copy is only going to look so good, and you're never going to get like a beautiful Dolby Atmos audio track here because these were filmed in mono and stuff. So it is what it is. Like, you're buying a 4K, but you're not getting all the trappings that you might expect from a standard 4K. You're still going to have a mono audio track, and it's only going to look so good. But I really think it's a release worth picking up just because it's a good movie, and this is probably the best it's ever going to look.
Yeah, I snagged it. I just haven't had a chance to watch it yet, so hopefully this weekend I'll give it another watch.
Yeah, this one's been on my list for a long time. I think I watched a video where somebody talked about it, and I've had some of the images like in my head. I'm like, yeah, I need to check this out. So it'll be a good time to
100%
time to see it. All right, yeah, kind of like Jeremy, I haven't watched a lot of what I would call new stuff. I got one new movie in, but I had a lot of rewatches, and one of the things that I rewatched last Friday was it's my all-time favorite Vincent Price movie, and it's one of my favorite movies in general, but that is The Abominable Dr. Phibes from 1971. This one was Robert Foist, I believe is how you say that. He did the sequel, Dr. Phibes Rises Again, as well as The Devil's Reign. It's written by James Whitten and William Goldstein, starring obviously the legendary Vincent Price, we just mentioned, and like I said, for my money, greatest horror actor who's ever lived. I love Vincent Price. I literally have watched him do Tilex commercials and love them. So, I think he's great. Joseph Cotton, Hugh Griffith, Terry Thomas, Virginia North, from the chick from Her Majesty's Secret Service, and Peter Jeffrey. This one is a duo of inspectors are investigating a series of murders that seem to be random but elaborate and are carrying a theme of the biblical plagues. It turns out the victims are all participants in a botched surgery, and someone intends to make them pay for their mistakes. So like I said, I love this movie. It's such a weird movie to say that I love it so much, because I've classically, for many, 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 many years, was a big hater of 60s and 70s aesthetic, and this movie is very late 60s, early 70s, like in all of its glory. It drips with all this color. It's like almost very like Technicolor-esque, and like how vibrant everything is, but it's beautiful. I love how, like, what's interesting about this movie for people who haven't seen it is that Vincent Price plays this character, Dr. Phibes, who's getting revenge on these men who botched the surgery and it ended in his wife dying. And so he he sets up these elaborate death scenes. So it's kind of like a slasher in a way, because he's like each person's kind of coming to their end based on one of the plagues. But what's really interesting about it is that I feel like the guys who wrote Saw had to have seen this movie, because there's so many pieces to it that are so Saw-esque. Like there's a guy who gets this like frog mask and he puts it on. It's like a whole, like it covers his whole head, and the like the neck collar like keeps clamping down tighter and tighter and tighter like a saw trap. It even has the little like gear mechanism on it, like you kind of see the bear trap things have in Saw. There is a scene at the end, like the final kill, where I'm telling you, this is not from a Saw movie. This is from a movie made in 1971. There's a young man with a key inserted into his body, and his father has to do surgery to get that key out to unlock the locks that are holding the man down to this stretcher before acid pours down this thing and like melts him, and kills them. So it's just so wild. I find it like almost impossible to believe that it didn't somehow inspire Saw, because it just has so many little moments like that. But that being said, it's not a torture porn type thing, which I hate that term anyway. I think torture porn, that's a stupid thing. It doesn't really describe anything. But this is not like that. In fact, this is actually a lot more, for as grim as I made it sound, it probably is something you could watch with like younger kids. It's got a little bit of comedy to it. It's mostly about these two bumbling detectives who just can't seem to show up on time to stop the killer, who is sort of a over the top like comic book sort of like bad guy who literally does like or plays the organ and does dance numbers to his little clockwork band that he has set up and everything. So yeah, this one's really, really awesome. I think Stephen King, I think Vincent Price really sells it. It's fantastic. So if you're really looking for something fun with Vincent Price, you can't really do better than Vibes. Then the other movie, it was a rewatch for me, is I did Candyman, the 2021 remake-will, I'm going to say, by Nia DaCosta. It was written by Nia DaCosta, and Wynn Rosenfeld and Jordan Peele had a writing credit, starring Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Teyonah Parris, Coleman Domingo, and Vanessa Williams. And it's not that Vanessa Williams, it's Vanessa Williams from the original Candyman. This one is about an artist who has moved into the gentrified version of the Cabrini Green neighborhood in Chicago, starts down a rabbit hole of exploring the urban myth and history of Helen Lyle, and by extension, the legend of Candyman. As he learns more, he finds himself drawn further into the clutches of the story in a very real and visceral way. So I think Candyman 92 is probably one of the best horror movies ever made. It's probably on a list of maybe 20 for me. I think it's probably the most recognized, it's definitely the most recognizable of Clive Barker's stories outside of Hellraiser.
Yeah.
And I dare say I think more people were scared of Candyman than Hellraiser. I think that's probably fair to say. I think Hellraiser's got a lot more like striking visual stuff that sticks with you. But I mean, how many people did you know? If you ever mentioned the movie Candyman, almost everybody you say that to is like, that movie scared the shit out of me.
Yep.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say the bathroom scene always scared the shit out of me as a kid. Yep.
Right. And that's something they revisit here in the.
It sure is. Yeah, and the new one.
So one of the things, before I get too deep into this, sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was gonna say I don't know like how prominent it is today, but if you were a kid growing up in the early 90s, this is 100% a movie that was hugely like influential, and like kids daring each other to do this shit, going, it was the equivalent of Bloody Mary back then. Also, Bloody Mary and Candyman, everyone was saying, go do it, go say it in the mirror, go say it in the mirror. And people were scared of it, like legitimately scared of this as children. And so it was definitely had a huge impact on a generation.
Right. So, I had really high expectations. And, whenever I hear they're doing a remake or a sequel to something that's, been out for 30 years, I always think they're going to mess this up. But the trailers look really cool. And so I went to see this in the theater, and this was the first time since then. But when I saw this in the theater, I can say I am a guy who watches horror movies. I'd say 90% of what I watch are horror movies. I watch everything from the most extreme stuff to the silliest stuff. You know, I've been doing it for a long time. I've been doing it since I was maybe 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that vicinity. And it is extremely hard to creep me out or scare me, especially with a film. And I remember several times in the theater watching this Candyman 2021 getting chills and being creeped out by what I was seeing on screen, which is just a feat because it's just so hard to do for me these days. And I even on this rewatch, there were a few times where I was just like, man, that is just so spooky. This movie has a great imagery. It has a in a different way. Like we've talked about the Uncanny Valley with stuff like Obsession recently, and I think this does it in a different way. That has some really great moments of like reflections and mirrors and things like that just aren't right. What this movie does something special that I think we don't see a lot when it comes to sequels, because this one, it's sort of a remake. The beginning of the movie definitely makes you think you're watching a remake of Candyman. By about the midway point, I think you realize that it's actually more of a sequel. And what I think is great about that is this is something that pays homage and honors the original without stepping on its toes at all. It doesn't take anything away. It doesn't change anything. And instead, it expands the mythos and adds more to what it could be, and sort of it opens the universe up in a way that I think is a really, really special thing. And Nia DaCosta deserves a lot of accolades for this, and I really want to be. It's really important to me that while we're talking about this movie, that we acknowledge that she wrote and directed this. Like Jordan Peele had some writing credit on it, and he produced it, but it's not Jordan Peele's movie. A lot of people get confused and think he directed this, and I think it's sad because I think she really deserves a lot of credit for coming out of the gate with just an absolutely insane movie like this. So good. It's got gore. It's got commentary on racism and how systemic racism can create violence that spreads like an infection, a violence that will even turn the Black community against itself. It does all this and not in a heavy-handed way, but a very nuanced and intelligent way. I think is just so good and so important. Yahya Abdul-Mateen is insanely good in this. What's really wild is I think he's insanely good in almost everything I've seen him in. He was great in this. He's great in Wonder Man.
Yep.
The only time that I scratch my head is that when I heard he was cast as Black Manta in Aquaman, I thought that's going to be great, and they just did not give him anything to work with in those movies. It's really kind of wild because he otherwise so great. Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good stuff about this. There's a lot of things that, I don't want to spoil it because it's a newer. I mean, it's 5 years old, but it's a newer movie, and if you haven't seen it, I don't want to say anything that'll really, really spoil something for you. But I think if you're a fan of the original, you'd really love it. I think even if you have never seen the original, it's still something you could watch and enjoy without needing to see that. I think it's enhanced by seeing the original, but it's not necessary to see the original. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just absolutely fantastic. There's some iconic. One of the really cool things in this too, it's not a spoiler, is in the credits, opening credits and the closing credits, they do these sort of like paper and shadow puppets. That are just absolutely stunning and like very eerie, and it's such a really neat style. It kind of reminds me of that. What was the Impetigore that had those like paper puppets? Like was that Indonesian movie, I believe.
I think that was Impetigore. That sounds right for that.
Yeah, it reminds me of that kind of thing. And they go over all these really unfortunate moments in American history that are like lynchings and things like that are done in these little paper puppetry that's really cool. It ties into like the Candyman myth. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a great movie. So what about you guys have thoughts?
Yeah, I love this movie, and like you mentioned, Nia DaCosta. I mean, she directed my favorite movie so far this year with 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. I think she's a massive talent who's got just a very bright career ahead of her. Unfortunately, her movies haven't always turned out at the box office like they should have, and I think that's very unfortunate, because the movies that she has made are all very fun, even if you're not into the source material. Like, I don't care about the Marvels, particularly myself either, but I don't think that she was at fault in making that movie. I think she's
no.
Consistently been great as a director, and this is no exception. I think this movie's, when I saw this in theaters, I was so impressed. There's so many awesome scenes and just cool effects that I wouldn't have thought of here. Years of technology between the original Candyman allowed them to do really, really neat visual effects that work so well for the character, and then the ending that kind of brings in this message about what Candyman is like just phenomenal, I think.
Agreed. I haven't seen it since opening weekend. I remember going to the theater, seeing it, loving it, and intending on purchasing it so I could rewatch it, but I haven't gone back to this one. So I'm glad you mentioned it, Jeff. That reminds me to go back and give it another watch.
Oh yeah, it's great, and it played really well. I showed it to a guy who I've been kind of introducing him to movies, and he saw Candyman I think sometime last year, and so we got to this one, and he really liked it and thought it was really good. So yeah, again, highly recommend. Like they mentioned, there are some scenes in this. Like there's a scene where the main character is looking in the mirror and he's seeing like Candyman, but it's like Candyman sort of mimicking all of his movements, and that's it. Just it's a shot. It's the lighting is like perfect to where you can almost not completely make Candyman out, and it's very uncanny valley and weird. And there's also a great like exterior shot of a building where you see a woman get murdered by Candyman like through her window, that I think is absolutely stunning. Yeah, just an amazing movie. Highly recommend. And then one quick one I want to mention, just they won't get as deep as the other two, is I did watch a newer found footage movie called Destroy This Tape. It came out in 2025. This was directed by Carter Folks and Sean McGarry, written by Mac Frew and James Patterson. No, not that James Patterson. And starring Hannah Brennan, Era McNeely, Matt Hall, Caroline Barr Ritchie, and Andrew Watson. This one is a group of campers go missing on a weekend trip, and a video is found of their harrowing last moments. So we've all heard that before. That's a found footage trope for the ages. I always like a really good. So found footage is interesting to me because I think when it's done really well, it's one of the most convincing and scary of the genres. But it's often not done well. I would say most of the time it's not done well. I think a lot of people use it as a like a cheap way to make a movie with like kind of low effort, because you don't really write so much of a script. You kind of like improv the dialogue and and all that kind of thing. And I think that can lead to some really bad stuff. But again, they're all usually kind of straightforward. It's like, oh, we're all going camping and I'm recording this because we're going to show my grandma next week, and bad stuff happens, and for some inexplicable reason I keep recording. This one had an interesting twist. You watch the found footage video in the beginning of like the people going camping and getting something bad happening to them, and then after it switches to a normal non-found footage, like traditionally shot film about a man who is trying to get to the bottom of what happened. It's like a writer who wants to write a book about what's going on and like uncover the mystery. So I thought that was kind of a neat way to do it. I wish that I could say I think it fully works. I don't think so. I think this one feels very similar to a movie that George mentioned when we were doing top and found footage. George mentioned the last broadcast. This one has a very similar idea going on with the end of it. I'm not going to say what that is, so I won't spoil anything, but I thought that part didn't work completely. Some of the acting's a little rough around the edges. Some of the writing's a little rough around the edges. But what I did think is I thought it had some original ideas. I thought it was a good effort for people who were just coming out of the gate with their funding their own movie and shooting their own movie. So I think these are guys to keep your eye on. I think they're going to come out with some stuff that will be really, really cool down the way, even if this one doesn't work for you. And if you do find yourself being a big fan of found footage, check it out, because I've definitely seen much, much worse. And I think this is going to work for some people a lot more than it worked for me.
Yeah, I usually enjoy found footage, so I haven't seen this one. I'm going to add it to my list. Try to give it a watch sometime soon. It sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, you might. And again, like I think you and I both, especially, we're big fans of like that kind of handcrafted thing
Oh,
that you
yeah.
see some people getting out there and they spent their $1,000 or whatever to make their movie, and you're like, I appreciate that because it's hard to do. Anytime you're watching any
Yes,
movie,
it is.
knowing just how much blood and sweat and tears go into making a movie and getting it finished, it deserves respect. Even if you, in the end, it's not your favorite movie, you don't like it that much. I think it's still important to respect it. So, yeah, I think you'll find some stuff to like. It's definitely not a bad effort.
Yeah, it sounds right up my alley. I'm definitely going to check that one out.
And then I know it sounds like we need to buy a little time for Jeremy, so I'll bring up. I wasn't going to bring up this last movie I had, but I'll go ahead and talk about it. So we buy a little moment. I think down the road we'll do a bigger episode on this because I think this is a rediscovery that I found that I think is woefully underrated these days, like woefully underrated. And that is Body Parts from 1991.
Oh, yeah.
It was directed by Eric Red, written by Eric Red and Norman Snyder, starring Jeff Fahey, Lindsay Duncan, Kim Delaney, and Brad Dourif, the ever amazing Brad Dourif. Before we get too deep into the movie, I will mention if you Google this and you Google the director, you're going to probably run across some. There was a kind of a big controversial moment because the director was involved in a car accident where I believe his car drove through like a building of some sort, and like I think some people were killed in the accident. And there's been a lot of talk back and forth about him and whether whether I believe I can't remember if he was actually under the influence or if it was just like a mental episode that it caused this, but there is a lot of stuff that surrounds that, and so I understand if that kind of thing is something that makes you want to stay away from the movie, but I wouldn't let it because I think it's a really great movie with some other people, lots of other people involved that are great. So this one is about a criminal psychologist who is in a terrible car accident in which he loses his arm, but through a bleeding edge medical procedure receives a new arm that's like grafted on through surgery. This miracle seems to come at a price when he begins to have violent visions and episodes and begins to question the source of his new appendage. So this one is like really bonkers, but in like a really awesome way. Because I think what's interesting is when this movie begins, it's just a guy and his family, and the guy's this criminal psychologist who talks to like a death row inmate, and is like obviously working on like material for probably writing a book. And you would never in a million years from the first like 20 minutes or so imagine where this is going. Like, I really don't think that the level of insanity that comes to play at this is apparent. Because a lot of movies you kind of know what you're in for, right? When you're watching Terrifier, within the first little bit, you're like, yeah, this is going to be a crazy movie. But I don't think you are with Body Parts. I don't think you're quite ready for exactly where this is going to go. The story is really nothing I think people haven't seen before. Like we've seen, The Hand with Michael Caine, other movies where there's stories about losing an arm or losing an appendage and then having it, or Hands of Orlok, stuff like that. And then have those things grafted on, and then these pieces belong to like a killer, and they're driving you to do like awful things. Yeah, I'm gonna spoil a little bit for this one, guys, because it's a movie that came out in 1991. But Fahey is acting his ass off in this. He always does. Like that is one thing I remember when I was watching this. I was like, I need to watch rewatch Psycho 3, because Jeff Fahey's in that, and I just remember him being unhinged in that, and he's kind of unhinged in that way that Nicolas Cage is, but not quite as maybe not quite as over the top. But I think he turns in a similar like wild performance that I always really, really appreciate. Brad Dourif is in this. He's a guy that gets one of the other arm from the killer that, and he's an artist, and he's drawing these like violent visions of this like, murderers. Because that's the whole thing. These pieces that this scientist or this doctor is putting on people come from a death row inmate who is like beheaded, and his pieces are given out during this surgery. And so it's really kind of interesting to see Fahey's character like assemble these guys who've received these implants, and he's having this horrible time where he's having these nightmares. He's waking up choking his wife. You can't stop thinking these violent thoughts. These other guys seem to be just completely enjoying their stuff. There's a guy who has the legs who's like playing basketball and that. Brad Dourif's like drawing all these art pieces, making all this money. So like they just keep putting him off. And like, the question is he crazy or is this like stuff really happening? But when this thing starts to kick off, it really fucking kicks off. Like it kicks off to like all the way up past 11. So if you can embrace like really over the top, like in silly premises, because that's the thing is I think the movie takes itself seriously, but the premise is a little out there. If you could just let yourself be on board with it, I think you'll have a blast. And I think that this one's one that I often hear people say, "Oh, it's so bad, it's so cheesy." Like, I remember when it came out, people kind of like weren't into it, but I think it's awesome and super underrated. So yeah, I think people should get out there and check it out.
This is another, I know I keep saying it, but another one that I need to rewatch. I remember watching this as a kid on HBO. It feels like HBO showed it like all the time. But yeah, most of that, the memories of the movie have been lost to time.
Well, what's really interesting is that it's funny you bring that up because when Jeremy brought up The Mangler, I think I saw The Mangler and Body Parts as a double feature type thing at a drive-in. I think it was that.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, I thought it was just wild. If I didn't see those two movies together, I definitely saw both of them at a drive-in within a span of time from each other. Yeah. So it's kind of wild we're talking about them on the same show.
Yeah. And you're talking about Eric Red, the director. I was just looking, and his writing credits are crazy.
Oh,
Apparently he wrote The Hitcher, Near Dark, Blue Steel, like a lot of stuff for I can't think of her name. The director of Blue Steel, Catherine Bigelow.
Yeah, Catherine Bigelow.
So that's cool.
This is one I haven't seen in a very long time, and I need to revisit as well because I remember liking it, like when I watched it 25 years ago or so, maybe 30 years ago at this point, but it's definitely been so long that there's very little I should remember about this movie at this point.
I would say, and it's always hard to gauge, because like especially Jeremy, I have a hard time pinning down what I think he'll like and won't like. I'm pretty sure George is going to love it. Jeremy, I'm split on. Like I don't know, either he'll love it or he'll think it's complete crap. I don't think there's any like middle ground there. So
yeah,
it'd be interesting
probably
to
not.
see what you think.
That might be a good topic for a rewatch episode.
Yeah, I think so, because I think this is one that didn't it's kind of been panned. So I think it would be a good one to do a full episode on. So all right, now we got Jeremy back. I think we can move into sort of one of the main events for tonight, which is we've been doing a summer slasher series. I don't think we intended it to be slashers. It's just kind of played out that way. We were finding a lot of summer movies are slashers. We thought we would do one a little special since we saw the timing of this episode. We could get it up on the 4th. So we're going to talk about, I think, maybe the only 4th of July themed horror film, as far as I can think. Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam, 1996. This one was direct to video. Which I'll try to mention that when I can. Some movies I don't remember whether they're direct to video or not, but I knew this one definitely was. This was directed by William Lustig, Maniac Cop, and also a little known fact is the owner of Blue Underground, the boutique label that does Blu-rays and 4Ks. He's a big film historian guy. Written by Larry Cohen, writer of the stuff, or the director of stuff, and It's Alive. This one stars William Smith, David Frolick, Christopher Ogden, Leslie Neal, Bo Hopkins, PJ Souls, and Isaac Hayes. Master Sergeant Sam Harper is killed in a friendly fire incident in Kuwait, and his body is shipped back to his family at home. On the 4th of July, he rises from the dead, steals an Uncle Sam costume, and begins a killing spree, going after people who are unpatriotic or doing things that are un-American. I'm doing air quotes. You guys just can't see that. Can his nephew, who once looked up to him as an idol, be the one who stops his rampage? So, what did you guys think?
So, this is a movie about the lamest kid of all time.
The lamest kid of all
time. So, I like the movie. It's fun. It's the kind of low budget slasher trash that I really love. From this time period. This was a time period when I think most people who are really into horror were probably hitting video stores a lot, and we were seeing this. There was a pattern, I feel like, in this kind of VHS cover art of this time, where you saw things like Jack Frost and Uncle Sam and all these movies that kind of had a similar cover art. It was just like a slasher's face on them, and a lot of times the covers were lenticular. So when you looked at them different angles, they looked a little differently. I think this one was like he was normal in one way, and he was like a zombie in another way. When you looked at it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was like the Uncle Sam mask and then the demasked version.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was like a popular kind of thing around this time in horror. And this was one that I rented back then, and I liked it at the time. I thought it was exactly what I was looking for. You know, you're not going into this expecting high art and like brilliant storytelling or even acting, but you're going to have a really good time with it. And there's just some super fun scenes, some cool kills. It's a good movie. I think it's not. I don't think it lives up to Lustig's previous work, like Maniac Cop, which I think I do like better. But I like this one a lot still.
Yeah, this one's fun. Like you said, there are some fun kills in it. I've noticed myself liking it more now than I did when it came out, because I remember renting this when it came out and being like, God, this is boring. This is dog shit. Now it is a lot more fun. A lot more of it lands better now for me than it did when I, 96, I was 13 probably watching this. So, I forgot how funny this one is. There's a lot of comedy in this one. And some of the things like the kid telling his teacher he's a coward for not going to war and all this stuff, like this terrible little kid is fucking hilarious in this movie. Just the fact that he's so jingoistic and like rah, go to war, kill everybody that's not American type thing is hilarious to me.
Yeah, I think the I believe that's William Smith, if I remember right, the kid. Am I wrong, or is that Chris?
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say William Smith. He's the one in the very beginning. The
you're right.
The major, whatever. Yeah,
but yeah, this kid, like, he has this delivery where there's a couple of scenes in this where somebody will say something like that, and like the teacher talking about how he didn't go to Nam, or the boyfriend of the mother or I think it's the boyfriend of the mother who's like talking about how he's like avoiding paying taxes, and the kid just delivers these like scathing fucking lines with this look on his face. But if you were there, if you were in the shoes of the guy he's saying this shit to, you'd be like, "Oh, you little shit." Because he just has this perfect delivery. So for a kid actor, he's killing it, especially for like a direct to video movie from like the mid '90s. I think like much like George, there were a lot of movies like this in the '90s and the early aughts, where at the time I don't know why I considered myself, because like looking at the things I loved, it makes no sense. I was a huge Friday the 13th fan. I was a huge Evil Dead fan. I was a huge Tales from the Crypt fan. But I just would go into a lot of these movies expecting something serious. I don't know why I thought that. I mean, the fucking movie's called Uncle Sam. There's like no way it's going to be serious. But I remember just thinking this was a real big turd. Like the first time I saw it, I didn't understand why people liked it. I did watch it a few years ago, rewatched it a few years ago, and just discovered that I had a lot more fun with it, because now I can just go, oh, this is that kind of movie, and put myself into the zone of like, oh, now we're just having fun. It's just a silly slasher. But saying that, this is a silly slasher. This has some very scathing commentary on American culture that I think is still just as relevant as it was in 1996, which is sad, but it is just as relevant now as it was then. Like George mentioned, there's a lot of jingoism stuff, and I think that's all because this movie birthed in the mid 90s, like after the 80s, like this whole Reagan era of just over the top patriotism and faux morality.
Well, I would say that like if you were alive in that 90s period, you actually saw this jingoism get significantly worse post 9/11.
Worse. Right.
Absolutely.
For sure. I just think it was that stuff. They were commenting on that era, and it's so great because you got to love like the war hero who turns out to be this abusive alcoholic psychopath, who's murdering people for being un-American. We're not by un-American. We're talking about things like they don't support the Vietnam War, or they're smoking weed. This makes you like a bad person.
Yeah, exactly.
I really like how Lustig is just he's having a lot of fun. It's very ham-fisted, but it's a blast. I think they did a good job of working in the 4th of July theme, because unfortunately I don't think it's perfect. Like I do think that there were some kills that went fuck it, and they just did something else. But there are some moments like the fireworks, like blowing up Robert Forster, which is great.
Robert Forster.
See Robert Forster
Amazing.
pop up in this. There's somebody, he uses George Washington's axe to kill a guy. There's like a corpse that's on a grill at one point, which, 4th of July, like grilling out. That's great. He like runs a guy through with a flag, American flag, and then like another guy like runs him up, like hangs him on the flagpole. So there are some really great 4th of July themed kills, and I think all of those are great. Like anytime they're doing that, you're just doubled over laughing at how ridiculous it is and how awesome that is. I think probably my favorite bit in this, because I just think the whole scene is so fucking weird to like look at. But before Sam, who's this murdered war veteran guy, or guy got killed by friendly fire, when he comes back, he's just like a zombie in like a uniform, like a soldier's uniform. But there's this guy, because it's 4th of July and there's getting ready to be a parade, and there's a dude who's got an Uncle Sam costume and he's up on stilts. Like, and my favorite part of this movie's set in some like small town USA with like the main street and all that, like your classic tiny town. And anybody who's ever lived in a tiny town knows you can't do a goddamn thing in those towns without everybody knowing you're doing it. You just can't.
Yep.
And so there's this guy walking around on stilts in a brightly colored red, white, and blue Uncle Sam costume, and he's trying to spy on like this girl in her bedroom window. So they're just walking through her fucking yard on like massive stilts so tall that he can literally look into her second story window. It's just ridiculous, and just that whole scene is just so insane.
And it's hilarious because
did you watch after the credits?
No.
Oh, you should, because after the credits, there is a scene of that guy. It's just an outtake where he's walking away from the window and his stilts get caught up and he goes tumbling, and you can see set people like running to try to catch him as he as he tumbles. So it's all the way after the credits. It's a funny scene. You're like, damn, tripping on those stilts would be brutal.
Right, and it's hilarious in the movie, like Jeff's point, in a small town, like everybody knows everybody. She immediately knows who he is and yells at him by name as he's running away from the house.
Yeah, I mean, there's only one dude that's going to walk on stilts that tall.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah. And again, like, it was a reason for them to sneak in some like nudity, because you had to do that back then. It was that time.
Not as good as Jack Frost's.
No,
when it comes to this era,
not much. Because we have to do Jack Frost sometime, because Jack Frost has one of the best horror comedy bits of all time.
It does, where
the couple are getting ready to like have sex, but they're like so bundled up it takes them forever to get like undressed. That is hilarious. Like that is a great joke. But yeah, this one's great. It's a very good popcorn movie. It's very silly. It's not serious. So if you're looking for a serious movie, do not put this on. It's not that kind of movie. This is the kind of movie you watch with your buddies and beer and laugh and have a good time. But, it does have something worthwhile to say, too. And I think that's probably... It's interesting because I've learned watching this that Bill Lustig has a thing for, like, rotten corpses and, like, uniforms.
He does.
He's doing that a
lot. It definitely seems that way.
Yeah, and then on top of that, the other thing that that kind of stood out to me, and now, of course, my, like, brain is just... evacuated, but I was just thinking there was another thing that I'd noticed about this that I thought was interesting too. It'll come to me later, but yeah. So I think we all pretty much enjoyed it. I mean, it's definitely a good. Again, you're not going to find a lot of horror movies that work for 4th of July. This is one you can throw on that everybody's going to laugh and have a good time with.
Yeah. What I don't remember. Did Lustig do a lot after this? Was this? I feel like he hasn't done like a ton of actual directorial work since this, has it? No, he hasn't.
No,
this was literally his last movie as director, other than conducting Dario Argento's opera, which seems like it was like some sort
probably an extra on a disc or something.
Yeah. So this was the last movie he directed, because I was like, when I'm thinking back, I don't remember him much after this actually directing this. I guess he did after this take over more of a producer credit and start like his video company, which. He did. Of course, he directed stuff like the Maniac remake and that kind of stuff. I mean, produced stuff like that.
Produced it.
So, it's just interesting to think that this was his last directorial effort.
I didn't realize he directed Vigilante with Robert Forster. So that
he really does like
connection right there. Yeah.
It was weird because well, I mean, I'm not unused to seeing Robert Forster show up because he was an alligator and stuff like that. So
yeah,
he pops up and
exactly.
stuff like this. But he always feels like the best actor by a long mile that's involved in whatever
any
he's
movie.
in. So you're kind of like, what? How did this happen?
Yeah.
Oh, I remembered what I was gonna. The other thing, while I was watching this, it dawned on me that this is a more lighthearted comedic version of Death Dream from 1974. It's a very
100%.
setup of Bob Clark, and that made me want to go back and rewatch that one because we were, as we often do, like as we're watching these movies, we text each other and discuss. And both George and I were saying that we'd seen Death Dream, and neither of us were huge fans. Even though
I'm not a big fan.
It was big. It was a movie that's talked about a lot. So I'm hoping now I'm a little older and a little different. Maybe that it'll hit me in a better way this time. I'll do a rewatch on that one.
Same.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to turn it over. We're actually coming to that. That's our summer movie, but the main focus of this week's topic is going to be a movie that Jeremy is going to talk to you guys about. So take it away, sir.
Yeah, so this week's main topic is a movie that never released in America, actually, in any legal manner. There's no licensing deals in America, but it's a very important movie in the history of Japanese cinema and in Japanese video games, and that is Sweet Home. This was a movie released in 1989. It's directed by the legendary Kiyoshi Kurosawa. He would go on to direct Pulse and Cure, which are two hugely influential Japanese horror films as well. He's still directing movies to this day. Very, very big deal in Japanese cinema. And this is also the movie that would go on to be the game Sweet Home of the same year for the Nintendo Famicom, which is the Japanese name of the Nintendo Entertainment System in America. This was actually the first video game developed in conjunction with a movie. So prior to this, there were, of course, licensed film games like Jaws and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween and all those for the Atari 2600 that existed, but they were never actually developed simultaneously with the film and in conjunction with the intent of them being like a transmedia property that would span across mediums. So this was groundbreaking in that sense. You get this movie that is like a very, I don't want to use the term generic as an insult, but it is, if you watch it, somewhat of a generic haunted house film. The plot is a generic haunted house film, similar to something like The Haunting or anything that you're familiar with from that era. And then you also get this original Nintendo RPG that's very revolutionary, where you have a set of characters and you're changing character teams to like try to make your way through this mansion. And if you go back and play that game, you'll see stuff like when you move between certain rooms, there's it switches to a first person view of a door, an animated opening of the door that is directly reused in Resident Evil, just remade in 3D. There's a scene when you encounter a psycho who he's like got his face turned halfway away from you, and then he turns and you can slowly see half of his face is like destroyed, which is the most famous scene in Resident Evil, just recreated. So the video game is very, very important. It's made by Capcom and was produced, directed, whatever you want to call it in video game terms, by Tokuro Fujiwara, who would go on to actually be the general producer on Resident Evil, wanting to use that game as a way to do all the things he couldn't do in the original Sweet Home. So that's kind of the legacy it has in video games. In film, this is a movie that when you go back and look at it, and you can see this on YouTube, just Google it. There's a nice copy by Kineko Films on YouTube, has a good scan of the Laserdisc, which was the last medium this was released on in Japan, was Laserdisc, with English subtitles intact and everything. So you can watch that. I'd recommend it. It looks great. But when you look at this from a Japanese movie standpoint, it's actually odd that it has some very American sensibilities versus a lot of other Japanese films. And that's probably partially because there's a lot of American people that worked on this. The most famous being Dick Smith, the famous effects artist who was the lead effects.
The Exorcist.
Yes, The Exorcist, Taxi Driver, Death Becomes Her, Tales from the Dark Side, The Godfather. So much stuff. I mean, Deer Hunter, Scanners. Just an extremely legendary effects person, and this was actually towards the tail end of his career. So Dick Smith was the lead effects person on this film. Unfortunately, after it went to theaters, the producer decided that he wanted to recut and reshoot some scenes before the home release. So some of Dick Smith's work is actually lost. Some of the effects in this have been replaced by other effects work, but it still looks very good in this home release. It's unfortunate that some of the Dick Smith effects are forever lost media. But if you look at the actual entire effects team on this movie, it is you couldn't ask for a better team, because, like I said, you have Dick Smith, and then you also have special effects by Tom Coleman, who worked on Ghostbusters and The Dark Half. You have effects by Etsuko Igawa, who did the makeup on David Lynch's Dune. He did makeup on One Missed Call and Hiroka the Goblin. And then you have Kazuhiro. This was the first movie he actually ever worked on. And then he would go on to do effects and makeup on the Ring remake, Hellboy, Hellboy 2, Tropic Thunder, Tron Legacy, Shape of Water, Mindhunter, the Smashing Machine. Like, he's still out there doing fantastic makeup work today. So the legacy of effects here is just fantastic. And then the cast, you have people like Shingo Yamashiro, who plays the main character in this, the main male lead, who was famous for the original 13 Assassins, and then the Battles Without Honor and Humanity series in Japan, which is a very popular kind of gangster film series there of 5 movies. If you ever get the chance, I'd recommend those as well. I love this movie. What did everyone else think of it? I was the one that really pushed for this movie to be on this, I think. So what did everyone else think of this one?
So, Sweet Home has been on my list for a long time. I'm aware of it in the context of the influence that it had on gaming, as far as Resident Evil, Silent Hill, the whole like Japanese horror video game genre. I fucking loved it. This is great. Like, and I did not believe I was going to like it. Having never seen it, having it always kind of hyped up in movie reviews or talking about it on forums, I thought I was going to go into it and really be disappointed. In first 20 minutes or so, I kind of was. I'm not going to lie. Like, it starts off a bit slow. It does feel like a normal haunted house movie until it doesn't, because this thing goes freaking nuts in the second half.
Yeah.
Some of the effects are fantastic. I mean, there's the bifurcation scene that is just insane.
Where Taguchi gets burned in half.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And there's lots of spoiler alerts here for a 35-year-old movie that you might not have actually seen for once, because it isn't available. So if you do want to skip, maybe skip ahead a little bit, because there will be spoilers here for sure.
And then I think we were texting while I was watching it, the three of us, and Jeff was like, "Hey, have you seen the boss yet? The boss fight? Basically the main monster." Right. I'm like, "No, not there yet." And so I keep waiting for it. And I'm like, wait, is this what he was talking about? No, that's not it. Is this what he was talking about? No, that's not it. Oh shit, this is definitely what Jeff was talking about. Like, it goes full body horror by the end of the movie with the main, whatever you want to call him, an antagonist, whatever, ghost. Like
the lady Mamiya or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. The lady of the house. Insane. I was head over heels with this by the end of it. I loved it. I had a blast with it.
Yeah, I think that final boss, the lady ghost, it reminded me sort of in some ways of the ending of A Dead Alive, like the giant mom.
Oh yeah, I can see that, the giant mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I definitely see that for sure.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, I was thinking about Lady Mamiya's design prior to her actual like reveal at the end as this like boss like creature. But when you see the shadow of her, there's a lot of scenes prior to this where you see like her shadow. And watching it again now, and I hadn't seen it in a few years. Watching it now, like the way her hair moves, I was like, so the Dead by Daylight people definitely watched this before they made Spirit, right?
Right.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, even Ringu at one point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you could tell that took a lot of inspiration from this too.
Yeah, it's definitely been wild to see how much influence just this movie had. Yeah, so there's a kind of a running joke among our group that I don't know why I struggle so hard to connect with Japanese media, but I do. I really do struggle with it. I approach it. I always keep an open mind, but I find a lot of times there's something about like Japanese culture and the way that the Japanese emote that doesn't. It's just weird. It just doesn't connect for me the same way that a lot of other stuff from other countries does. So I went into this kind of, I guess I will say, like guarded, because I was like, well, I do like that it's from the 80s. I tend to prefer like anime from the 80s and things like that. And then I think, am I wrong? And was Evil Dead Trap 80s or was that 90s?
I believe that's 80s.
Early 90s.
Oh, is it
Early
early
90s?
90s?
Or
Actually?
in that,
I
so
think
it's
it was
still in
like
that
90 or
period.
91. Yeah,
late
88.
80s, early
88
90s.
is what it was.
And I really
88,
like Evil
okay.
Dead Trap a lot. And
Same.
so I was like, okay, maybe this will be closer to that. And it is. It is definitely closer to that than it is, like, I would say,
Yeah,
a
it
lot of
is.
modern stuff. So I did. I was relieved, and I did really like it. I don't think I liked it as much as George and Jeremy did, but and this is one of those movies. I think when you're watching it, if you're a seasoned horror person who hasn't seen this, like somehow you've missed it over the years, because like Jeremy mentioned, it's not been available. There's not a lot about the story that you're going to find original. For its time,
No.
it would have had original elements, but because we've seen so many things that were inspired by it or similar to it over the years, it feels like stuff you've seen before in terms of the plot, like where they're at, that kind of thing. But where it sets itself apart is, the effects and the visuals are so wild and crazy and over the top. And like George said, it's a little slow in the beginning. Although I will admit, the beginning encouraged me a lot, because I felt like the acting when they go to the two guys and they're saying, "Hey, we want to go up to this house," and the guys are like trying to talk them out of it. Like, I felt like that felt a lot more like cinema I was more accustomed to, like something about that, like the way that was all set up, the way it was acted was like more like what I'm used to. And so I thought, okay, this is going to feel a little bit better or more, I'm going to be able to connect with this a little bit more. And I was able to do that. I think there are just some visuals in this that make the whole thing worth it. Like I remember like watching this, that they have this weird. And I remember I actually messaged Jeremy this. I was like, do they put all coffin, like babies, corpses in Japan in these weird, like Geiger-esque coffins?
It looks just like a Geiger creation. It does.
It looks like he's carrying around some kind of pod from like the space jockey ship in Alien that's got like this baby corpse in it. Like that was really, really weird and cool. And like we talked about, the giant mother ghost thing at the end is just, oh, holy shit. Like, it's just one of those things you can't. Yeah. Not a whole lot like it. And there are other like weird, like I think on my Instagram, Jeff Scream Signal, I posted a picture as a teaser with this like kind of ghost like type character floating around. Just so much like weird, creepy imagery. And the house, like, is the house, I'm sure it's like a mini, like a little model, like the castle.
So, yeah.
But it looks so awesome. Like, you're looking at that thing, you're like, holy shit, it's like a weird, like, what if
Super
Dracula's like castle mixed together with like a haunted house or something? It's just like really, really, really awesome.
It really stands
like,
out because so many Japanese horror movies are like ultra low budget.
Right.
This one really does stand out because, like I said, the special effects team on it is so strong that they were able to do like all these very cool set designs and very cool miniature models. Which like you said, I assume it's a miniature of the house. I'm not sure, but I would think so based on the ending, especially. That it really does stand out in Japanese cinema, and it's a real shame it never came here, because I felt like it would have been popular had it actually got a dub and released here in the early 90s.
Yeah. We had like a weird time in our culture where just like Japanese stuff was hard to get a hold of, and the only way you really got a hold of it was like weird bootlegs. That some weird dude would be like, "Hey man, I have these like this Ghost in the Shell movie in my basement on VHS. You want to watch that?" And you're like, "Oh, sure." And so it was this weird, like, trippy time to discover these kind of things. And I'm sure anybody who saw this back then, that's how they saw it. Some kind of weird copied 8 times, VHS. And so probably enhances it in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I did want to say, like, one of the effects that we're talking about, we just like nut scenes. The scene where Yamamura, who's kind of like the local who eventually like explains the plot to the couple. There's kind of like a scene in the middle where he just literally like info dumps on them and tells them exactly what's going on with Lady Yamamiya. But then when he it meets his eventual fate, there's like this insane melting scene where you like it's so intense and just amazing watching it. Like, Jesus, this must have had so much work in it. It looks great.
And it goes on for a while,
It
too.
does.
It's not just like he dies. No,
Like,
it
you
goes
watch this
on
guy
and on.
melt until he's a skeleton that's crumbling to dust.
Yeah.
It's very Evil Dead with the melting and down to
Yeah.
the bone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the guy that's like crawling across the floor? Like
No,
half-
that's
a
no.
different guy.
That's the
We're
guy.
talking about the
that's
gas
Taguchi at the
station,
beginning.
dude.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, who's the guy just played by Juzo Itami, who he actually would go on to be a direct Tom Popo, which is like a brilliant like dark comedy starring Ken Watanabe. Like, definitely recommend Tom Popo if you haven't seen it. So the cast in this is actually just like this. The cast and crew of this is stacked from top to bottom. It's crazy when you watch it. You're like, damn. If you're familiar with Japanese cinema.
I know you brought up Atami, and I thought I discovered an interesting thing while I was looking up information on this movie. That so it's written and directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, but he actually would say that what we see is more Atami.
Yes,
because apparently after the movie was shot, Atami went back and did some reshoots and edits of the final movie, and he didn't consult Kurosawa on this. And Kurosawa took such an issue with it that he actually took the whole thing to court, which was the first time in Japanese history this had ever happened. Like, the director was suing the production of the movie because he didn't think that what was released was his final vision. He would eventually lose that case.
Yeah, he did lose that case, which was unfortunate because it does hurt creators overall in that region. That happened.
Yeah, for sure. It sucks to think that you'd put something in and then producers would come behind you. Whether or not what they did was good or bad it kind of doesn't even really matter. It just sucks that happens to a creator. Yeah,
it sucks, and we'll never know if it's good or bad because of that lawsuit. We can't even watch his original film that showed in theaters, which is sad. It is lost media at this point. The original version of Sweet Home is forever gone, as far as we know.
Well, hopefully, we have heard that before, and things have shown up. So maybe we'll get lucky, and there's some dusty corner this is sitting, and somebody will find it.
I feel like the rights issues on this are like a particularly horrifying nightmare at this point.
Probably.
Years of never even making it to me. Which is part of why this is just easily available on YouTube, because there's no one in the U.S. that owns the rights, so there's no one to even like file a takedown notice in the U.S. because no one has it, no one owns it here. So it's this weird legal gray area where you can find Blu-rays of this for sale out there from various like sketchy Blu-ray like burners and stuff, and it's just out there because no one's really protecting this film in any meaningful way in America or other territories outside of Japan.
And that right now it's for our benefit because it would be next to impossible to see it. So you can see it now, like you said, on YouTube. So it's good for us. But yeah, check it out, Sweet Home. I think it was interesting. I think it's very cool, especially if you're more used to modern Japanese horror, because like if you're used to things like Ringu and Ju-on, stuff like that. This is nothing like that. This is something different. Now, I will say this probably influenced some of that stuff
for sure.
But yeah, it's its own thing, and it has much more of an 80s vibe in general. And I think a lot of people listening to this podcast probably really appreciate 80s horror. So
it does. I've heard people say this is like, because Kiyoshi Kurosawa's later films are so different from this, and this was kind of like some of his first work. That I've heard a lot of people say like this was Kurosawa, who is a film buff and like is that person that loves all these movies. Probably this is him just doing a genre film straight up. Like he is just loving making a genre film here, and it does show. And none of his later work is like this, so it stands out even in his catalog, and it stands out from Japanese work prior to it, I would even say, because if you go back to older horror movies like Onibaba or Kwaidan, they're not like this either. So this is it is this kind of movie from Japan is rather unique.
Yeah, one thing that I thought was different about it as well is the way it's shot. It feels almost like it was made for TV. I know it went to a theater, but it has that, I don't know how to describe it, that like television feel, like a Doctor Who episode from the 70s or 80s would have had.
I'm sure
which I love. It gives it a different flavor. But
yeah.
But no, it's great. I really, really enjoyed it. So that was a good recommendation, Jeremy.
Oh, and another note: Kiyoshi Kurosawa, while he shares a surname, right? Surname with
Yeah.
the great
Akira.
Akira Kurosawa, they're not related.
Yeah, no relation. It's just two very influential Japanese directors with the same last name. So
So to follow up Sweet Home, since it was a spooky haunted house movie, we decided that we would do some recommendations for you guys of some of our favorite haunted house movies. And this will kind of range the gamut. Like I know mine's like at least one of mine is a very well known movie, but a couple of them are maybe a little under the radar. So why don't you, George? Why don't you lead us off with your haunted house movie recommendations?
Yeah. So my three recommendations, I'm going to start off with a newer one. I say newer, it's from 2020, so about 6 years old now, but that is Adam Stovall's A Ghost Waits. Um, Shot in black and white, very low budget. It's an indie flick. Um, Kind of more on the romance side than really on the horror side, but a guy is cleaning out a house and he finds out that this house is haunted. Um, he starts to try to communicate with the ghost. He starts using music and other means to try to form a connection there. And when the ghost finally reveals itself to him, he realizes, oh, this is a girl about my age who died in this house. They start to form up a friendship. It becomes a relationship. And yeah, it's just a great, great romantic horror movie. Um, Ending on this one may kind of divide some people, but I think it's pitch perfect. Definitely check out A Ghost Waits. I think I originally saw it as part of Nevermore Film Festival back in 2020 when this came out. And I fell head over heels for it. It's great. Definitely
Yeah, I
worth a
can
watch.
say I saw this one too. I think I saw it when it came to streaming, and
Yeah.
it was one that I watched with my partner, and it was, I think it was romantic in some ways, sad in
Very
some
much so.
ways. I don't, at least I don't remember it being very scary. I think it kind of hovers
Yeah.
more in like a sentimental and like funny like spot. But
Exactly.
yeah, it is really good. It's especially if you like those kind of. I think this falls into this is going to be one that I'm going to throw out there that not everybody's going to get, but I think it almost feels kind of mumblecore, like
Yeah, it's definitely
that
mumblecore.
yeah, that early like Ty West, Adam
Or
Wingard, like kind of
yeah.
talky indie like horror movies. Yeah, it kind of falls into that right place, and it's a good example of one of those. It's a good movie.
Yeah, it's definitely great. Like you said, there's not a whole lot of horror to it. I mean, there's a ghost that's definitely horror material, but it's more about the relationship between him and the ghost in the house. Um, Keeping on with movies with ghosts in the title. Second one is going to be 1981's Ghost Story, directed by John Irvin, and this one is based on the fantastic novel by Peter Straub, who did a couple of like split novels with Stephen King over the years. I think he did like The Black House and
The
The
Talisman.
Talisman,
Yeah.
yeah, with King. Um, Excellent horror author. Um, but this one has Craig Wasson in the lead, who's always great. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. Uh, but he finds out that his twin brother has passed away mysteriously. This leads him going back to his town that he grew up in Maine, basically leaving New York City to go back to Maine to see to, his brother's passing. When he gets there, he gets roped in with his father and this group of older gentlemen, played by classic 1920s, 30s actors like Fred Astaire, John Houseman, Melvin Douglas, Douglas Fairbanks. Great cast, super stacked.
Yeah, absolutely stacked.
But they get together during these winter nights in Maine and they all tell each other ghost stories to try to scare each other. Well, this leads to Don, the lead character, kind of getting into that group of these older gentlemen and starting to find out that pieces of his life tie back directly to something that happened to all of these older men in the 1920s when they were teenagers, all revolving around a girl. It is great. I first saw this one on cable and absolutely just like lost my mind for it. I hadn't heard of it at the time. That would have been probably my early 20s. And since then, I've watched it on DVD. I've got on Laserdisc. you name it. It's one that I go back to. It is a perfect fall movie. It's very much a cold, kind of dreary, classic ghost film. Very, very gothic feeling. Just pitch perfect. Love that.
Yeah. I remember when I was younger, a friend of mine gave me a huge stack of old Fangoria magazines going back from the 80s all the way up to probably the late 90s. And I would go through these magazines and I would find images or references to movies and I just write them down. Because back then, you couldn't just pop on the internet and watch anything you wanted to watch. You had to find these movies. And I remember the ghost in this movie has a very striking look. Very scary, very like gross like look. And I believe one of the Fango issues I looked at had an image of that, and it just said, such and such from Ghost Story. And I was like, what is this Ghost Story movie? I had to find this. And I don't think I actually managed to see it. It was either on when Netflix discs came around or when the mom and pop video stores were starting to close up. And you could go by there and buy tons of VHSs for real cheap. But I did eventually find a copy and I did watch it and I thought it was absolutely great. Especially, I'm a guy who a lot of times some of the classic haunted house movies don't work for me that well. It's just something about them, like or haunt or just ghost movies in general. But I think this is a good example of one that works really well. That has a very intriguing story and in some ways kind of plays out like a classic morality tale of people getting what's coming to them. So
I can see that. I mean, yeah, it falls in line with the like we were talking about recently, the Tales of the Crypt, right? With the morality tales. Yep,
that's a good one. And like you said, it's really cool to see all these old, like Fred Astaire and people like that in their like twilight, like still working. So it was really cool.
This is one of those films that I like to mentally remake as a new film in my head and try to figure out who I would cast. Right, like Richard Jenkins, you could cast him as one of the older gentlemen, or oh hell,
I can see that.
So many people to choose from that would be so good in those roles now. So, but
that's
definitely check out
Ghost Story. With any like older, Ghost Stories. It's a fun movie. I think I picked this one up and first watched it when a lot of the local video stores were closing down and they were selling off VHSs for dirt cheap. And you could grab like 5 VHSs for $10 or something. This is one that I happened to grab a stack one day and really enjoyed it. Of all the ones that I picked up at that time, this is a great movie.
Has some great special effects. Like the special effects,
it really definitely does. And it's one of those.
What's that? Dick Smith?
Ones that like. Oh, I don't know. I have to check and see.
I'll check. You go ahead.
It's one that, like, if you're talking to someone who likes horror and you bring it up, they're going to go, "Oh my god, the movie's so good," but you never hear anybody talk about it in general, right? Now, when it comes to like haunted house or ghost
Dick Smith that did the special effects,
and Rick Baker, Dick Smith and Rick Baker together.
Oh, what a team! Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, there's one special effect I always think of that's with the 1920s car.
Mm-hmm.
There's a body in the car, and that special effect is just so good.
Yeah.
But,
am I remembering it right? Is it Alice Krige played the?
Yeah, it's Alice Krige. Yep.
Oh yeah,
playing
she's
the redhead.
awesome. She's so good.
Yeah, she's great in it too. And then my third recommendation is going to be from 2007. It's going to be J.A. Bayona's The Orphanage, Spanish film. This one is special to me because the first time I ever moved anywhere away from where I grew up was in 2007. I moved to a town that actually showed foreign films. So I saw there was a movie that was, I believe this had Guillermo del Toro's name.
Yeah, he produced
it. Because a lot of people, I remember telling me this. I remember a lot of people saying like, "Oh, have you seen that new Del Toro movie?" and thinking that he directed this at the time.
Well, I thought he did too. I didn't look up anything before I went to go see it. It was like maybe my second day in town. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to go to this movie theater." It was the first movie I saw in town, and it absolutely blew me away. It's about a woman and her husband and their child. The child, unbeknownst to him, is terminally ill. The mother, she grew up in an orphanage in Spain that was for handicapped children. Her and her husband buy this orphanage. They fix it up. They want to reopen it so that, handicapped children can once again have a place to stay. During the open house for the reopening of the orphanage, her own son goes missing. possibly murdered. She doesn't know. It turns into a mystery at that point of her trying to track down what happened to her son, who's maybe like 5 or 6 years old in the movie. And there's a lot of supernatural goings on within the house as well. There's noises, there's things kind of moving around, kind of pointing her in different directions as she tries to find her son. This one's great. It is a fantastic, haunting film, but it is also one that you will never forget the ending to. I remember just being destroyed walking out of the theater after watching it, in a bittersweet way, not in a fully negative way. But yeah, if you have not seen The Orphanage, definitely check it out. It is one of my favorite ghost movies, if not my favorite ghost movie.
Awesome. All right, Jeremy, what you got for us?
All right. So I'm going to start off with a movie that's actually probably, if you know of Sweet Home, you probably know this movie as well. In fact, I think it may be mentioned on the Wikipedia page randomly as a movie that's related, even though there's no actual direct tie between them. And that is Hausu from 1977. This is just, it's a surreal masterpiece by Nobuhiko Obayashi, who was a experimental filmmaker in 70s Japan. This is a story of a young schoolgirl named Gorgeous, who plans to go off on this amazing summer vacation, is telling all her friends about how her rich dad's coming back and he's going to take her on this great vacation. And then he comes home and announces that he's like married this woman and all this, and that he's got a new life basically. And she gets upset and calls her aunt and asks if she can come stay with her for the summer. So Gorgeous and her 6 friends proceed to go off to her aunt's house for the summer vacation. And from there, stuff just goes insane when they get to this house. And it's such a weird movie. Like, the main character is named Gorgeous because she's pretty. And then you have a girl named Kung Fu because she knows Kung Fu. Mm-hmm. And then there's a girl named Melody because she likes music. And Fantasy likes Daydreamer. And the most hilarious is Mac likes to eat. Like, it's just very strange. Yep. Once they arrive at the house, like, it becomes this fever dream of strange shit constantly happening. Like, pianos eating people and just all kinds of weird stuff building up to an insane ending. There's a Criterion release of this on standard Blu-ray that's really nice. I'm really hoping this one gets a 4K release eventually because I love this movie and highly recommend it. I think I made Jeff watch this one time and he was not nearly as enthused as I was.
Well, it's the thing about it, I do need to rewatch it. I think it's more zany than I was expecting.
Yes.
I'm not sure why. It is a very like whimsical, like zany, like over the top, silly. Like, I don't know that I don't know really.
It's like scared. The Labyrinth or something on acid.
Right.
Like, if it was any crazier.
Yeah, it almost feels like, what, like if somebody was like, all right, what if we got Junji Ito to do like Labyrinth, but like, maybe like
yeah.
Like, I mean, because it's not even really as dark as Ito's stuff. It's just
it's super goofy.
It does have a lot of really like unique and interesting visuals, and I do remember that. And I remember the house that's set is very interesting, and like the architecture and stuff is very weird. So it's definitely got stuff that's I think is worth watching, even if it wasn't my favorite movie. And I admit, I think we watched that. We were probably, I don't know, like we were a lot younger.
When
I saw that, so I might have grown more into something like that than now. So I need to see it again for sure.
This is one I watch probably once a year. I love this movie. It's one of my favorites of all time. So I definitely recommend this one highly.
It's super silly, and it is without a doubt the best movie to ever have a decapitated head by the girl in the ass.
Yes.
It is
exactly.
so good. Like, there's trying to describe this movie to anyone, they would think you were insane.
Yes.
There's no way to describe it.
Yeah.
But it's straight up punk rock. It's super fun.
I will throw it out there just so everybody doesn't think I'm just a massive hater. There are Japanese horror movies I like. I would say that Audition is one of my all-time. It's a top, probably top 30. So I do like some. I don't hate them all. It's just something. It's harder to find ones I love than maybe say like Italian horror or something.
Yeah. The next movie I'm going to recommend, and I might have actually recommended this before under a different category. I can't remember. And if I have, I'm going to keep recommending it under other categories. And that
There
is
you go.
Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder in Hell.
Yeah.
I think we
Um,
talked about it once. I can't remember if you recommended it, but I know we talked about
I'm
it.
almost positive I brought it up in this podcast before, but this is referred to a lot as the Japanese Evil Dead. A lot of people have called it over
Yep.
the
Right.
years.
Right.
It's literally about a Japanese bodybuilder who agrees to help like his ex-girlfriend investigate this old haunted house, and then they get trapped in this old house where it just goes nuts, wild, like gory, crazy.
Mhm.
Like it is the Japanese Evil Dead is the best way to describe it. It is every
Oh, yeah.
bit as crazy as Evil Dead, and also trapped inside of kind of a house like the Evil Dead cabin, but just in a different locale. It's a lot of fun. It's on Tubi, I'm pretty sure, so you can just watch this for free. And it's you won't regret it. It's like 63 minutes, so it's really fast. It's really short. You don't have to dedicate much time to it, but you'll have a great time. I guarantee it.
Oh, it's a blast. I watched it a couple years ago. I think through Arrow, maybe on their streaming service. I don't recall now, but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it has a Blu-ray release because I have it.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who puts out the Blu-ray. I want to say it's Visual Vengeance, maybe that's released by. But it's the Blu-ray is great if you want to pick it. If you like the movie, I'd recommend the Blu-ray as well. It's a great film and a lot of fun. So definitely check out Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder in Hell.
You know.
And the third movie I was going to recommend is the 2014 New Zealand horror comedy Housebound.
Oh yeah.
This is in the same. Well, I don't want to say what's in the same vein because it gives away the ending. But there's movies that have been very similar to this plot. I think this is the best one of them. But this is about a young woman who has kind of like a criminal history. She's kind of like a troublemaker who is. She attempts to like break into an ATM, I think, if I remember correctly, or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe steal the whole ATM. I can't remember. But then she is sentenced to house arrest for 8 months in her mother's house, and her parents and her don't really get along at all. She doesn't like her stepdad. She argues with her mom constantly. They have a very fragile relationship. But when her parents leave the house and stuff, they leave her alone regularly. She starts to experience hauntings. Like she starts to believe the house is haunted. Like there's weird shit happening. She sees like what she believes are ghosts, and so she starts to try to like convince people around her this is happening. And it gets funnier and funnier and crazier from there. And you have there's some hilarious scenes in this that I remember laughing out loud at actually, which is not something I do a lot in movies. But just a very, very fun movie. I know both of you have seen this as well.
Yeah. This one's great. I think I'm gonna try to. I don't want to give anything away. There's a couple of things about this that make it interesting. One, there is a big budget movie that has a very similar plot to this, especially when it comes to the end, like the reveal or whatever. And yeah, this is much better than that one. By like a long mile, even though the other one's a little more serious and this is more of a horror comedy. I think this is a lot better. I also believe, and I think I can say this without spoiling it too much, but I believe that this is loosely inspired by a real true crime story.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing that's fun about it. So yeah, this one it's got some spooky moments, but I wouldn't really call it scary. But it is definitely, like you said, it's a very, very funny movie.
Yeah, and that's my three. I think all of these movies are well worth watching. Two of them are more funny than scary. Well, I guess none of them are really scary. Two of them are more funny than scary, and one of them is more over the top, gory, ridiculous than scary. But all worth watching in the vein of haunted house films.
Yeah. Well, I got you covered on scary, I think. So we'll do some of my recommendations here. And the first one I'm going to lead off is also the most recent. I'm actually going to do these in start with the most recent and work my way back to the oldest. But the most recent and one that I think is criminally underseen is The Innkeepers, 2011. This one was written and directed by Ty West. And you guys will know Ty West from House of the Devil, but probably most people listening will know X and Pearl. He did those, and Maxine.
Yeah.
did all that trilogy recently. I've been following Ty's career for a long time. I think he makes a lot of really cool movies, and this was the one that actually like convinced me that he was a great filmmaker. Because prior to this, I hadn't been completely sold. This one cemented it for me. So the plot of The Innkeepers is two employees of an old hotel staff manning its last days in operation find out the stories of the place being haunted might be more true than they initially believed. This one also stars Sarah Paxton and Pat Healy. It's pretty much a movie about Sarah Paxton and Pat Healy. And what I will say about it, again, like we're kind of on that topic of mumblecore, this is a movie about some friends who, you know, maybe they could be more than friends, maybe not. Most of the movie is just them hanging out in this old hotel and talking about life and like the future and like, you know, where they're going with things. And then slowly this movie reels you in. And I found that I think some of the best, especially ghost movies, that's how they operate. They get you kind of hooked on like normal human drama and then kind of slap you upside the face with the spooky stuff later. And when The Innkeepers, it's such a slow, dreadful build, but it reaches a peak that I think is some of the scariest stuff that I've seen, especially once you've let your guard down because you've been kind of watching this like playful, like, you know, drama kind of thing playing out. There's some great imagery. Like I think the ghost imagery in this is very good. I think it's up there with stuff from Ghost Story. I think the setting is incredible. This like it feels like an old hotel. It could be in anybody's hometown. It's so special. And I love movies that are small like this. It's just a few people in the cast. There's not a lot going on. It's just them and a camera and, you know, making it work. And they really do. So if you can do a slower movie, because you really do have to, this one, it takes some patience. It's not one that you're going to be, you know, you get your wits scared off right at the beginning. It's not like that. I think The Innkeepers pays off. I think it's really good.
Yeah, I really like this movie a lot.
Yeah, I do too. I was going to say it falls into that mumblecore, like
yes,
you were talking about earlier.
Absolutely,
this one is definitely of that era, but it's so good.
I just really like Pat Healy a lot. I find that if he's in something, I'm probably going to have a good time with it.
He's always great. Yep. Yeah. And I remember being very excited for this one after House of the Devil. This was his follow-up, and God, it's good. But nobody ever talks about it, which is a shame.
It is a weird one that just flies. I think, I mean, if you're looking at his career and you're looking at House of the Devil and you're looking at X, Innkeepers is a much more quiet, small movie, and so I understand probably why it doesn't stand out, but I think it also shows that he has a mastery over a lot of different disciplines when it comes to film.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is one of those that I really wanted. The Umbrella recently put out a nice collector's edition of this, but unfortunately, Umbrella being in Australia means that it's very expensive to order. So it was one of those that I still want a nice copy of and just do not have yet in the US. In a copy that I'm satisfied with. So I'm hoping at some point this one gets a really nice release here as well.
I do too. All right, so coming on from The Innkeepers, we'll go a little bit further back into the early aughts when a young Jeff would discover one of his favorite directors for the first time in a little quiet movie that I believe I saw I want to say, I could be wrong when I say this, so don't quote me. It could have been Fangoria, but I think I had gotten one of my first issues of Rue Morgue magazine that talked about this movie, which is The Devil's Backbone. This is directed by Guillermo del Toro. It's also 2001. That's when it came out. Written by Del Toro and Antonio Tresoras. I might mess some of these names up, so I apologize. I don't speak Spanish. Starring Marisa Paredes, Eduardo Noriega, Fernando Tivel, and Irene Vicedo. A young boy comes to stay at an orphanage during the last days of the Spanish Civil War and finds himself haunted by the spirit of a boy who died there years before under mysterious circumstances. So yeah, this was the first time I saw anything from Guillermo del Toro, or at least that I knew of. I didn't realize I had seen he had done Mimic years before, but I didn't. When I saw that, I was a kid. I had no idea. I wasn't paying attention to who directed movies or did anything back then. So I would say this is the movie that put Del Toro on my radar. It was also probably my introduction to really to foreign film. I don't think I'd watched a lot of foreign film prior to this. I mean, probably one or two here and there when somebody would be like, "Hey, you just have to see this movie." But I just, I didn't have access to a lot of these things, so I didn't know. But I saw an article. I thought the imagery was really cool. I wanted to see this movie. I knew it was getting a lot of great buzz at the time, and I can say this. It to this day is probably my favorite Del Toro movie. Although I think pretty much everything he's done is just amazing. But this movie is haunting. It's beautiful. It's sad. It has Del Toro has an eye that I would liken to somebody like Spielberg, where he has this really unique way of seeing the world the way a kid does, and he's able to really channel that into his work. And so you have this like fantastic little because the setting of this is this orphanage, like this mission in Spain, and it's sort of this dilapidated, like crumbling place that has the craziest part about it is right in the middle of the courtyard of this place. There's a big undetonated missile that's like crashed into it. Yeah, a big bomb. And that's just sort of hanging there. And the kids talk about how if you get up close to it and listen, you can still hear it ticking. There's this whimsy to his work that like weaves you into this much in the same way I think Tim Burton does. He pulls you into a world that's just so uniquely his. Del Toro does the same thing. And this has amazing acting. The story is this really interesting mystery that has twists and turns that involve like people at the that work in the orphanage now. The ghost is this little boy who, whenever you see him, he looks obviously dead, like pale and all this, but he's kind of sort of like iridescent-y, like wispy, and he has this like cloud of like blood colored like smoke almost like rising from his head. And like eventually this will all make sense, but when you see it earlier in the movie, it's just this really bizarre image, and it's like captivating, and you want to know more. I wouldn't say this is a scary movie. It's got some like spooky parts. It's more of like a thriller and like a mystery where you're kind of on the ride of like finding out what happened here. Like I said, some of the performances in this are absolutely great. Noriega plays this villain, Jacinto, who's just like, for one, I think he kind of looks like Eli Roth. I don't know if anybody else ever noticed that.
I can see that.
Plays this guy. But he is just a garbage person who you absolutely hate, and like he does it so well that that's how you know somebody really turned in a performance, when you're like, I hated that guy. He's just such a bastard. And so this is one of those movies when I think a lot of people think they don't like movies about like like period pieces and stuff like that. I'm like, well, even if you think you don't like foreign movies, even if you think you don't like period pieces, I think The Devil's Backbone is incredible. Like absolutely a 5-star movie that probably a lot of people haven't seen. I bet a lot of people have seen the bigger stuff that Del Toro would do later, but I think this one might go fly under the radar a bit.
Yeah, I think this one came out before Pan's Labyrinth, which was the big breakout for him in the United States for sure. And I remember when Pan's Labyrinth came out, I remember telling people like, "Oh, if you like Pan's Labyrinth, you've got to go watch The Devil's Backbone."
Exactly.
Like,
they go hand in hand.
Yeah, that they are like. I mean, I think Del Toro himself, if I remember correctly, I read an article around the time of Pan's Labyrinth where he was saying he saw Pan's Labyrinth as his feminine film in this same vein as this was his masculine film of childlike fear and wonder. And I can definitely see that as well, because those two do line up, and they are very similar themes and like emotions throughout. Both absolutely fantastic. I do think I like Devil's Backbones more than Pan's Labyrinth. Pan's Labyrinth also has some incredibly striking imagery and designs that are just amazing. But that's like everything Del Toro ever made, so he doesn't miss. So
it'd also be kind of like, do you want to have this ribeye or do you want to have this porterhouse? I mean,
exactly.
They're both great movies.
Yeah.
So Devil's Backbone, check it out if you haven't seen it. Again, even if you think you don't like period pieces, even if you think you don't like subtitled movies, it's worth it. They're great. It's a great movie. So then I wanted to come back. This is one I think is probably the most like known movie, but it's also a lot older. And so because it's a lot older, I think there might be a lot of our listeners who haven't had a chance to see it. And this is what I would say is probably the granddaddy of all haunted house movies. I think they probably all owe something to this film. And that is The Haunting, 1963. Directed by Robert Wise, who would do West Side Story and Sound of Music. and this is written by Nelson Gidding as an adaptation of the Shirley Jackson novel The Haunting of Hill House, which some of you might have seen Mike Flanagan's crack at that, which is not really a crack at that, so it's kind of weird. I love Mike Flanagan. Don't love Haunting of Hill House. Watch The Haunting instead. So this one is a doctor recruits 3 strangers for a sleep study at the infamous and reputedly haunted Hill House, in which a series of historical tragic deaths have left the place vacant. It isn't long before the participants discover the doctor's real motivation is the paranormal activity on the grounds, and they may all be at the mercy of an ancient evil. So there is before we get too deep in this, there is a remake of this that came out in the late 90s, I believe.
Late 90s. Yeah, like 98.
That has Liam Neeson and
Owen Wilson.
Owen Wilson. I was trying to think of the lady, the main actress.
The one from Say Anything.
Yeah. Shit. Well, it'll come to us. It'll come to us. But that movie's okay, especially for its time. But what I remember, I saw that first. I saw the remake before I ever saw this. I was, as I've mentioned on the show before, as a kid, as a younger horror fan, I was very turned off by anything like pre-80s. Something about the aesthetics of that stuff didn't always work for me. So I didn't see this until way later. But when I saw this for the first time, I was blown away at how much scarier this movie is than the remake, without showing even half of what the remake shows. Because that's one of the things that's really great about The Haunting, is it's black and white, it's one of the most gorgeous black and white movies I've ever seen. I think it's like the definition of this is why some movies are shot like this. So like atmospheric and creepy with like inky shadows and like, light used just the right way, where 90, probably, well, maybe not 90, at least 80% of this movie is really just anticipation and atmosphere. And they managed to scare the shit out of you without really showing you much of anything. I think probably the most intense that I can remember, the most intense effect that is that door that's like breathing.
I was thinking about the door, yeah.
Which is such a great scene. It's such an iconic like moment that you'll think back to for years and years and years. This is a really cool one. I mean, I think pretty much every haunted house that's ever been put to film since The Haunting has looked at this movie and taken cues from it. This big spooky house, the like noises, the person who's seeing things that nobody believes. And I mean, by all that, probably extension, everybody owes Shirley Jackson a lot for writing The Haunting of Hill House, which was a great book. I think it's probably hard to find it. Like if somebody was like, Jeff, what's the greatest haunted house movie of all time? It'd probably be this. Like, I don't know if it's my favorite, but I'd say it's probably the best. I mean, just pure atmosphere with a very dark and foreboding ending. Like one of the creepiest houses of all time. Absolutely spooky. This is a watch this in October at night with all the lights off, making everything as cool as possible, and let yourself get completely like wrapped up and taken away in it. And I guarantee you'll get chills at least once. All right. So everybody, those were our recommendations for haunted house movies for this summer and maybe the fall, if you're going to save some for the fall.
Yeah, there'll be a test on these at the end, so get them watched.
Yep. There's gonna be a test.
There'll be a test for sure.
Yeah, and you only get extra credit if you talk about how much cooler my opinions are than either of these other guys' opinions. So
seems wrong.
Yeah,
no,
sounds like bribery. But
okay. We kind of wanted to start adding in something here at the end to kind of give you guys something to look forward to. That's going to give you a teaser, a little bit of what we're going to be covering next episode. So next week, we are going to do another summer movie. This time, we're going to do Ice Cream Man. I believe that one is that 90?
95?
95, I believe, yeah. So Ice Cream Man, 95, direct-to-video slasher summer horror movie about a killer ice cream man. Can't really go wrong there with Clint Howard. So we're going to watch that one, and you guys can watch it and listen to what we have to say, or you can wait and hear what we have to say, decide if you want to watch it.
Yeah, we'll do the Ice Cream Man, and then next month we'll do the Ice Cream Man again.
Oh, yeah. It's true.
Yeah,
we do have a new Ice Cream
Roth
Man
one,
coming
right?
out. Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what that's, because it's not a remake. It's like a different movie.
No, it's a totally different movie. So,
but that is interesting. And the other thing is not only is it's not a remake and it's not based on the comic book series as well. I was kind of hoping for because there's this really great horror anthology comic book series. It's more modern called Ice Cream Man too, which I recommend if you haven't because it's a good if you like anthology horror. Great.
Yep.
But the big thing we're going to do next, we're going to go back to something we haven't done in a little while, and that is we're going to cover a novel. We're going to be discussing the novel Monumental by Adam Neville. This is a cosmic horror novel from the author who brought you The Ritual, which was a movie that, a book, and the movie The Ritual was adapted from for Netflix several years ago, but one that hit really hard. I think a lot of people saw and really liked. So that's what drove me to want to read Monumental, and I think it's really good. So I think you guys are going to enjoy that episode. Well, all right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We hope you'll join us next week, and until then, stay spooky.